Thank you for watching the Finance and Affirmations podcast. I appreciate you being here. Make sure you click the subscribe button so you'll be alerted when I post new content. Enjoy the episode.
Believe it or not, some of our students go through financial trauma, especially students in the hardest hit population or the ACE population, adverse childhood experience, where if you experience, the lights being cut off or being evicted, your car, watching your parents or grandparents or guardian cars being towed, or living in foster care, moving with your parents, that has some direct or indirect financial trauma with that. And we hold those things. So me growing up being poor, when I did have money, like, oh no, like I'm afraid to spend it, like I have to safeguard it. But then you have some people, because I grew up poor, I want to spend everything and get everything that I never had before. That is a form of financial trauma or something that we have to look into, because whether we want to realize it or not, it impacts our decisions with money. We know that money impacts our decisions in the workplace. And we know those, there are things that give us financial stress. So even as young as 8, those cores are being built. So what can 8 cents in a jar do to not only diminish that, treat it, give them financial therapy, but then now give them the slate to build wealth?
Wonderful. That is just so aligned with the work that I'm doing with Finance and Affirmations. Very similar. And it's just funny, I have not heard it called financial social work. But what I have said is, I do healing-centered financial education and engagement, because we do sometimes suffer from trauma that we don't even realize is there. We also suffer from money shame and are not really able to identify like where that came from. And then the whole thing that you were talking about with like the mindset and the shift, like, do you even believe, you are worthy to have money and live in abundance? So I'm that's just really exciting for me because I know that it's, aligned with what you're doing. And I know that's definitely something that is needed in our community. And so you said it took 2 years for you guys to kind of find your identity. And so what was it when you initially started, like the very base program that you were doing? What were you doing when you first started?
Honestly, I cannot even tell you what we were doing the first time Ace and Jar got started, because we were trying to do everything and did nothing at all. Right?
Okay.
So if you wanted to switch gears, when you think about founders of nonprofits, so you have an idea and you just get your 501c3 paperwork, typically one of the top 3 responses, now I need to go get money. I need to go get grants to fund my nonprofit. But what is it that you're doing? Like, what programs do you offer? What services do you provide? Is it scalable? Can someone fund this for you? But most importantly, even before you get grants, how can you self-fund? So when you think about the board and what it is that you want to do, those are those conversations that we did not have yet. So in the beginning, like the first 2 years, and I call those the undocumented years, because again, we had no governance. We had like paper sign-in sheets, hopefully remember where they are, or we couldn't read the handwriting. So it's like, oh, that's lost data, right? So with that, we just did sessions with students, and that was really it. So locally, in the state of Florida, and probably throughout the various states, you may have some type of nonprofit council within your state. And then even at the state level, they may have it on the local level. So again, we're in Florida, Orlando, Florida to be exact. Shout out to Central Florida Foundation. And so that is the place where if you wanted to be considered serious about having a nonprofit organization and they work with you to get funding, you have to go through their vetting process. So they give you paperwork to fill out. Oh, it's easy, just fill it out, give it to us back within the next week. It took me 8 months to fill that out. Wow. Not because it was just that extensive, because they were asking me questions I didn't know. So what problem am I aiming to solve? What evidence backs up what I'm trying to do. And
Mm-hmm.
that made me pause and think. So when we think about programs, what signature programs do we want to have to then verify and validate the objectives, the goals, the milestones that we're saying that we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it really caused us to think and it caused us to shift our gears. And then with that, then that's when we started to have programs that can be sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
scalable, but then also that can be measured as well.
Wow. Like this for me is like a master class really in how to get it set up. No, truly. I know that there are listeners who are going to be like, wow, okay. And so one question I do have, why did you choose to go the nonprofit route as opposed to being a for-profit business?
So, and that's a great question. And let me tell you, initially at first I was set up for profit.
Mm-hmm.
So even setting this up, I was like, okay, I can bring in, this can be my side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
If I can bring in $500 a month to then pay off my student loan faster, then so be it.
Yeah.
And so I initially set that up. 6 months in, it was like, yeah, this isn't the best method for you. Or people who, fell in love with, our mission and what we was trying to do at the time, or our mission at the time. I was like, oh, great. What's your nonprofit paperwork? And I was like, what? They was like, you can get more opportunity as a nonprofit. So we looked into it. We ended up having to shut down the for-profit and start over as a nonprofit. And so that was definitely an eye-opening experience. Now, I will say this. So since we're turning this into a masterclass, people make sure that follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, 8 cents in a jar, the number 8. With that, people, I'm going to say people, not your listeners, but other people assume like once you have a nonprofit, everybody is automatically expected to give to you. And that is not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
So even owning a nonprofit, it literally is still a business.
Right.
Literally still a business. The only thing that is different is what you do with that money afterwards and just those different tax codes and laws. But you still need to have a strategic plan. You still need to have a board of directors. You still need to have governance practice. You still need to understand data, understand security, marketing, finance, and the list goes on and on and on that you have to do. Also, with people starting nonprofits, I would say that we allow our passion to lead us and we forget about the process, the purpose, and the procedures.
Mm-hmm.
And you will always have passion, but you will run out of money one day. So, how can you even analyze your passion? And I would even say have an opportunity to, build up the governance piece. And then at that time, I would say it's when you have a nonprofit ready to go.
Wow. And there's like so many questions that I have for you. And I know we don't have like unlimited time, but I do have a couple more I want to get in. So first 2 years, you switch to a nonprofit, you start receiving funding, you start creating programs that are scalable, and that you can, obviously you're a data-driven organization because you've basically spoken of that a couple of times. And so you said 2016. So what is that? 4, 5, 6, 9 years? Is my math right?
8 years. So we
8 years.
celebrate 8 years this year.
8 years. Okay. And so as a creator and a business owner, when did it finally feel like, or does it, that you were kind of like, okay, we are flowing in the right direction. Everything is, all of our cylinders are popping the way they should be. Did you reach that place or are you still getting there?
Listen, still getting there. And I'm no idea if we'll get there because one of the things that we do at 8 Cents is that we continue to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we feel, okay, we have this under our belt or we've reached this milestone, guess what? Just like a business, and you have the various stages of business, like a startup, a mature business,
Mm-hmm.
you have those same stages and maturity levels in nonprofits.
Mm.
So, although we may have grown out of the infancy phase, guess what? We're now a toddler, within that process. And once you get through toddler, it's childhood and teenage years. So in each stage and each milestone has this unique set of things that you never had to worry about before, right? Most people assume, okay, well, once I get my first grant, we're good. Okay, so you get your first grant, but now it's the data keeping, the reporting on the backside that you had no idea how you was going to manage, right? So that brings its own set of new opportunities to learn.
So, um, partnerships. So I know you said initially when everything kind of started, you knew there were people who were loving what you were talking about and wanted to support. How did you get those partnerships, the new partnerships, to come along and fund you and, and just be partners with you?
So I would definitely say with organizations, but especially at 8 cents in a jar, you have to do your due diligence, and we had to do the same as well.
Okay.
So every opportunity probably was not for us, but we had to understand who we are first before we can then identify, like, yes, this is a good potential partnership for us. In
Okay.
the beginning, just like most corporations, even with nonprofits as well, you just want to say that you have a partnership or you have this or you have funders without even really thinking, is it right for you? So we've had some of those situations, but then also we had situations where we did not nurture the relationship. We didn't know how or that we needed to. So even with those conversations, it took growth from it in to then realize and get to the point based upon the mission that we have, the vision that we have, where we're going in the next 5 months. People talk about 5 years. Hell, let's get through 5 months, right? Or
Okay.
the next 8 months. We had to figure out what was that. But then second, I will also say sometimes the best partnerships have nothing to do with donations or giving money. So how can we leverage and even identify what that money is? And then last, I would just even say on that, when it comes to partnership, you know, for us, or at least for me, the limitation was like, oh, we're grassroots. Like I started this nonprofit in my dining room, or, I'm Black owned or Black led, not owned, but Black led. People are not going to take me seriously. And so I put those limitations on myself. But then it took place with an organization called Victory Cup, also based in Central Florida, where it's a storytelling competition. And so if you win first place in the storytelling competition, at the time they'll give you like $20,000, funders in the room. And if they like your story, they literally like donate to your website on the spot.
Got it.
Best thing ever. And someone asks, what do you need? And I said money. It was like, okay, so how much money and what you gonna do with it? And I was like, ooh, I don't know how much, like endless. And like, no, there's no such thing as endless. So then again, we had to like really understand what we needed. How can we articulate our needs? And then I think that's where the partnerships really began.
Wow. So, Money Expo, how did that begin?
So, for your listeners, each year we have a Teach Students Money Expo. And so you've had the privilege to come down to
Yes.
Florida and see it in person. Now, I will say this. The concept of Teach Students Money Expo is not 8 cents in a jar. And probably, honestly, about 50% of what we do has been done before and it's been going on even while I was in elementary, right? So for that, in most states, it may be called the Reality Fair. It may be called the Youth Financial Literacy Fair. It has a host of different names and it's put on by multiple organizations. So I saw something on TV or online. I was like, oh my God, that looks so amazing. Like, I want to do it. And so I started to research it, and little did I know there were at least 17 starter kits online. Like, here's how you do it,
Okay.
down to the email template. So I'm reading through everything, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring it to Central Florida, not realizing there were 3 already in Central Florida, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Again, doing your research. So
Okay.
I said, I know that I learn differently from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what it was like with my experience. Like, instead of it being black and white or bland,
Mm-hmm.
how can it be literal? So I can see it, feel it, touch it, and hear it.
Yeah.
And that's when we started to break off into making it uniquely with us. So, just to give you an example of all of the free kits that we saw online that you
Mm-hmm.
can download, 57 pages,
Mm-hmm.
they said this is the list of what not to do. Everybody, this is what you should not do.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
gonna be too much. Don't do it. Like it's too involved. Don't do it. We literally did everything they told us not to do. Why? Because the impact was personal.
Yeah.
So for most places, it was general careers. Like you had
Mm-hmm.
like 10 careers that you rotated, plumber, whatever. You worked at ABC company. Bump that. We took real jobs in Central Florida. So we had
Mm-hmm.
157 unique jobs based upon if you were to move to Central Florida and if you had either a high school diploma only, a college degree, an associate's, or some type of vocational license at a certain age, at 28, what would be available to you in Central Florida? And those are the careers that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So we analyzed the economy for Central Florida. So most people think like we're a tourism place, which we are.
Mm-hmm.
People know us for the castle and the Disney years, yes?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much more to that, like the industries, how Central Florida make money. It gave
Mm-hmm.
us a great opportunity to build that into our program. So that was one. Two, credit scores. It's one thing. And so even for credit scores, they never talked about it. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about it
Mm-hmm.
because having a 513 or a 480 versus a 790 feels different. So guess what
Mm-hmm.
we did? Every student had a credit score.
Mm-hmm.
Based upon their credit score, it then determined the life that they built in our financial simulation
Mm-hmm.
because they had to be 28 and see and feel what it's like to be a 28-year-old moving to Central Florida into this neighborhood, and then let's go. Also, housing for most of the kids, very generic housing. No, we worked with realtors and we had 30 options of housing, which include renting, buying, Airbnb as well with the specific address. So they can take their phone and they can go look at the homes
Mm-hmm.
based upon the zip code where they are in order to make decisions. So again, everything they told us not to do, we said we're going to do it. Now, I completely understand why they told us not to do it because it was a lot of work, but a lot of work, gives you the results that you're looking for and make aha moments. So that is Teach Students Money Expo that we have at 8 cents in a jar.
I just wanted to say this. So I started following you in 2019. I created an investment club for the youth in my church and then in my community. And so I said, I know there has to be an organization out here already that's doing something like this. And so I just started looking, and your website popped up. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay. And so I just started, reading your site and the things that you were doing. And the Money Expo caught my attention right away. Well, 2019, we know then COVID happened. And then, so I'm still, doing my little business. I have my kids and we're wanting to travel and all of that. And so when we had the opportunity, we went to visit the Money Expo. And so a couple of things that are just kind of funny to me that happened with the kids. And so my daughter, she actually had a great credit score, but her income was low. And so at one point, she was looking like really stressed. And she was like, Mom, I mean, I have a great credit score, but I can't buy nothing. She was like, I got these kids. And so she said she was stressed. And literally, like, 2 minutes later, they announced that you could go to therapy. And so she went and saw a therapist. They had all of that simulated, you guys. I had another student who was getting ready to buy all of her insurance and all of that. And then there was like an inflation something, and everything went up like $100. And she was like, what? Wait a minute. I was then they were like sorry, it's $100 more now. So that was really funny with her. And then this other young man, he went through the whole home ownership process. What do you qualify for? You got to go fill out an application. You got to get qualified for a loan. So it was just really, really a great experience for the kids. And so Lashea has told you where to find her, but I want you to say that again, Lashea, for everybody who's listening.
Absolutely. So you can go online right now, either via your laptop, tablet, or smart device, and just type in www.8cents.org. That is our website. But if you want to follow us on social media, and we want you to, we welcome you. You can go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and my students are trying to get us to get a TikTok, which we will do that. And just go to the number 8 cents in a jar. So 8 cents in a jar, and you'll be able to find us online as well.
So the last question that I'll close down with, because trust me, I could talk to you like all day. The last question I'll close down with though is if there is someone listening that is a young parent, someone who's starting a business, maybe an entrepreneur, or even a student who's really kind of trying to find their way financially, how would you affirm them in this moment?
I would definitely say God doesn't make mistakes. And hopefully I can say that
Oh,
on here with
absolutely.
this
Yes, ma'am.
podcast.
Yes.
So even just with my story, like I was 19 when I learned that you can have a bank account, like even before I knew what it was.
Mhm.
And so if I can be used of someone who's been through so much trial and tribulation to create an award-winning organization with, national exposure within 8 years, just keep going. You will always have someone tell you that you can't do it, and that's fine. They do not see your vision, and it's not up to them to see it. They don't understand how to do it, and that's fine and okay too. Just keep going. I still don't know what I'm doing. I am figuring this out as I go along. So I want to be transparent, and I don't want you to think that I have it all together, because I don't. Keep going. If you feel overwhelmed, take a break for that day, pray on it, and as you wake up tomorrow, just start over the next day.
Wonderful. Well, Lashea, I am so blessed that you came by to be with us. I hope maybe sometime in the future we can connect once your organization, is doing some other great things. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed watching the Finance and Affirmations podcast. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button. Until next time, blessings.